All right. Hello, everybody, once again. Welcome to another episode of the Southern Oregon Sports Blog podcast. I, of course, am Chris Phillips. Lincoln Andres-Beck with me, my partner on the GP broadcast. We're doing good stuff this year. So we're very excited to have him here. We're going to do a quick rundown of the football scores from last week and look forward to next week. And then Lincoln's the soccer expert here, so we're going to get into some soccer a little more in depth. Looks like he's got some pro stuff ready to go. So I'm good. I'm good with that. Looks we're going to talk about the high school teams from around the state. He's plugged into a lot of that kind of stuff. So that'll be good. We'll do a first segment just on the quick rundown for football, and then we'll move on to soccer. You know, say hello to the people. Give them a quick little.
Sounds good. I'm excited. Champions League is getting going, so exciting stuff going on in the soccer world, and of course football. We're getting into the heart of the season for high school football around here, so that's the big topic.
Right, and that's always. So we'll go ahead and jump into those. Just give you a quick rundown from last week. Number one, Jesuit continues to look dominant. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with all season. 63-0 over Aloha. Number two, Tualatin, 27-14 over number 10, Lake Oswego. So that's another one out of that Three Rivers Conference that is going to be competitive all year. We're already looking forward to another Three Rivers Conference game next week as the big top 10 matchup.
Yeah, very tough conference there.
Top to bottom. I mean, we saw Newburgh, we saw Sherwood in week 1 playing Grants Pass, and then we were at Newburgh week 2.
Yeah.
And Grants Pass was very lucky to escape with a victory out of a tough, athletic Newburgh team who's only going to get better. Their best player is a junior, Anthony Adams, going to be a senior next year. But just such a tough conference.
Yeah, and that Newburgh team looking like near the bottom of that very, very difficult conference. So.
Right, and we saw how good they could be when they were rolling right. So to say that's one of the worst teams in the conference is, or at least one of the weakest teams in the conference this year, that tells you something about the rest of the conference. Number 3, Sheldon, another team I wanted to ask you a little bit about since I had to miss that game with Grants Pass. They took care of business 48-25 over South Medford.
Their quarterback, very, very impressive.
Justin Herbert.
Probably the strongest high school arm, most accurate high school passing arm I've seen out of a quarterback, definitely in the last couple of years. They kind of steamrolled Grants Pass. Grants Pass had a lot of turnovers, a couple of stops. They were stopped on the 1-yard line twice in a row in the third quarter. In 2 back-to-back drives, unable to get anything out of that. Otherwise, much closer game. Grants Pass with tough. A lot of penalties, too. Probably 15, 16 penalties in that game.
We saw that again last week. We saw personal foul penalties, dumb penalties, the kind of ones that really get on coaches' nerves.
Yeah, the players really got to play a little smarter, a little more under control, and avoid some of those yellow flags coming up for Grants Pass.
That takes us to, so that's number 3, Sheldon over South Medford. Number 4, Central Catholic finally seems like they're getting things rolling after last year's state championship 49-0 victory over Tigard in the state title game last year. They took on undefeated Centennial and really put it to them 42-6. So that's going to drop Centennial. Show you Central Catholic's getting rolling. They had that tough opening week loss to Jesuit, who still looks like, a legit number 1 team. And then they lost to St. John Bosco out of Southern California. Always tough to go play in those big-time state-to-state games.
Is that at Cali, too?
It was down there.
Yeah, so tough to travel down, facing a tough physical, probably a big team out of California, which is something that Oregon team's not necessarily always the biggest in football, so tough to go down there. Very difficult non-conference schedule there to start things off for Centennial.
To open things with,
But they wanted to test themselves early on. They can see where they're at, and now they can look forward, after a good win this week, to rolling into that conference schedule and fighting their way into the playoffs.
Right, that Mountain Hood Conference. Not as tough as the Three Rivers Conference, but still some very good teams in there. That takes us to number 6, West Lynn, 49-20 over Newburgh. So there, and then number 7, Sherwood, who we were just talking about, 35-3 over Lake Ridge. So those Newburgh, Lake Ridge, kind of the lower end of that Three Rivers Conference.
In that conference, yeah. And Sherwood, very, very tough. I can see them going deep in the playoffs as long as that O-line, D-line stays healthy. That's really what powers up that run attack they have with that wing offense.
And they're so much more explosive than they were last year. The team we saw last year, all ground game. I mean, still, they could still put some points and some yardage on the board.
And that's the base of their offense, but the quarterback,
there's absolutely a different element to this year's team that makes them significantly more explosive.
Yeah, because you really have to play that play action, too, because he's shown he can throw the ball 30, 40 yards downfield accurately in that game against Grants Pass.
Number 8, South Salem, 50-43 over West Salem. So the Saxons over the Titans. West Salem, the team that knocked Grants Pass out in last year's quarterfinals. So we saw them. Again, you're saying the teams from up north have more size. They just do. They have more guys, and that's what eventually got to Grants Pass. They could survive a Southwest Conference.
Yeah,
and
because
dominate.
Their offense was so
they were
quick
so
and explosive.
quick, and they were so. But they started running into Lake Oswego, and then West Salem back to back, and they were frankly kind of lucky to get out of that Lake Oswego game with a victory, and then West Salem ended up taking it to them.
Power at the line eventually, and as you move into the playoffs, it's been 12, 13 weeks that this O-line's getting beat up week after week, especially with an undersized line. It's very difficult to go all the way through that playoffs without taking some knocks, some injuries, and eventually the defenses of these more physical, bigger teams are going to break through. They're going to start to shut things down, and if you can't find another way to circumvent it, whether that's through screenplays or whatever you're going to do, quicker passing game, you have to find a way to get around a O-line that can be broken through as you get later into the season.
Right, and a defensive line that can just take over in a way that, I mean, when you're starting 220-pounders on the line, 205, 215,
and you see 260, 270.
And they're not just big guys. They have some athleticism. They're not just big.
They've been in the weight room all the year. They've got
they can play.
They got the footwork down. They've got it's muscle. It's not just a guy standing there trying to push through you.
Right. South Salem, West Salem, number 9, Beaverton, 45-35 over Westview. Looks to really be the only thing standing in Jesuit's way. So that's a conference game from Jesuit a couple weeks from now. Really the only thing I can see tripping Jesuit up before we get deep into the playoffs.
Yeah, no, but Jesuit's definitely a team I expect to see at least in the semifinals, if not the championship game this year, the way they've
victories
been playing.
Over Central Catholic and then Sheldon. Yeah. When you play the two of the best teams in the state non-conference.
Yeah, and they really set the tone and shown that why they're the number 1 team this year.
And don't look to be backing off anytime soon. We'll go through our Table Rock scores real quick. North Medford. See, this is about the time in the year when I actually start citing rankings.
Yeah.
Not media rankings, but the actual power polls. We're halfway through the season now.
So the RPI works itself out, and so the computers are finally figuring out who really belongs up in that top
who's
level.
Played who. Enough teams have played other teams that math really starts to work itself out right about now. So North Medford comes in number 13. They got the victory 42-10 in Spiegelberg over South Eugene last week. So South Eugene's been struggling for a couple of years now. That should be South Eugene, Thurston, really the bottom of the conference.
Yeah.
Willamette, I saw them against South Medford. They actually looked a lot stronger than last year. And Roseburg, of course, upset North Medford
they beat
last
North Medford by a single point, right?
Right, on a 2-point conversion. So Willamette did beat Roseburg 37-28. So that's a big victory for the Wolverines, coming off a good showing against a good South Medford team. So to go and beat the Indians is a nice conference victory for them.
It's a good statement for them, saying we're here, we want to be part of this race in this pretty wide open conference after you get past Sheldon.
Right. And there's some young teams. Next year is going to be really, really interesting. South Medford has their 4 or 5 best playmakers are all sophomores.
Yeah.
Same thing with Willamette. Their 3 or 4 best players were all sophomores.
Those are players who are not only just learning, they're still growing. They're still developing, coming into the muscle and all that stuff. So next year they could be that much more explosive, that much stronger, that much faster.
And working in the same system these are teams that are this is going to be a very exciting conference next year. Of course, we finish things up. The game you and I saw, Grants Pass 52-7, taking care of business over a Thurston team. And that doesn't tell, again, tons of penalties. Not a great game for Grants Pass.
But just Thurston unable to get anything going on offense. They tried swapping quarterbacks several times. Just nothing could get going for the Colts.
It's going to be a long year for them.
Yeah.
the Colts and the Axemen, South Eugene and Thurston, really. Willamette's got something to look forward to. Roseburg obviously has their upset on the year. They have some things to build around.
They both have
Thurman.
Positive points as they head into the meat of the schedule.
Around Thurman Bell retiring, their head coach retiring after 45 years, I think, as the head of the Roseburg Indians. So
Grants Pass, definitely some positive signs if they can clean it up this week. They got back-to-back weeks at Spiegelberg, but the Caveman could make a run heading towards that second spot in the conference.
It's going to tell a lot, and I think they got them in the right order. If they're going to make this happen, they get South Medford first and then North.
Yeah, so they can clean it up against South, who appears to be the softer of the two.
Extremely talented, but again,
very talented,
thin,
but
not a deep roster,
and
thin
young.
and young.
And
so if you're going to get
Grants
right,
Pass has more of those seniors. So
if you're going to get right, that's the team to get right against.
And it's time for the senior leadership for Grants Pass to step up in the next 2 weeks. That's going to decide their season if senior leadership can point this team in the right direction and really drive them in the next couple weeks.
That's a great point. So that's our quick little recap. We'll also look ahead to next week, some big games. Obviously, the one we were talking about right before we went on the air. Tualatin at Sherwood.
Yeah, and Sherwood, one of those teams that's been towards the bottom of that Three Rivers Conference. So this game really a statement game saying we're here and we want to move up into the top part of this very difficult conference.
Right, well, last year they actually came up from 5A last year.
Yeah.
So they were a 5A. They'd gone to, I think, 3 straight 5A state championships. So last year, with realignment, their first year moving into 6A.
And it was a little bit rough.
It was a little rough. And they actually made a nice little run in the playoffs. But, again, that conference play was tough for them.
Yeah.
They didn't fare well in conference play. So that really the big one that we could find. The ones that we'll be covering tomorrow. We'll actually be covering, for the first time, Eagle Point.
Yeah.
For Table Rock, TableRockSports.net. Got the banner back here. Got to give them their props. So that should be, they are hosting Springfield, I believe.
Yeah, I believe that's right.
Springfield at Eagle Point, so that'll be the game you and I are doing tomorrow.
Eagle Point, always a team that brings a lot of heart, a lot of spirit to every one of their sports, even when they don't have the most talent on their squads.
Right.
You know they're always going to fight. They always play whistle to whistle.
Yeah.
And
they're actually 2-2 on the year after going winless last year.
Yeah.
2-2 on the year, both and then, yes, Eagle Point gets Springfield. So they're actually 2-2 on the year. Springfield, one of the real traditional powers in that Midwest Conference. Crater, I had Jack on last week. Crater's looking really good after another victory. And then Ashland, I think, is the number 2 ranked 5A team in the state.
I think
so.
Those
those three teams really the class of the 5A Midwestern.
So it's a fight for that 4th spot to get the home playing game to head into the state playoffs.
Ashland, Crater, Springfield, really the class of the conference.
Yeah.
But Eagle Point making some strides. That's all you can do is try and grow a program at that point.
Improve year by year, and they seem to be doing that so far.
And the other games that will be on our Table Rock schedule, North Medford will be at Thurston, so they'll have a chance to, again, get things going in the right direction after that trip up against Roseburg. It'll be a big game for North Medford to keep rolling a little bit.
Yeah, and then we could see Grants Pass if they win over South Medford, and then North Medford probably going to win over Thurston, 2 teams that are really getting rolling.
Right. 2 weeks from
now. With a big matchup 2 weeks from now.
Sheldon will be at Roseburg, and then Willamette at South Eugene. So I expect Willamette to take care of business in that one. Sheldon, obviously,
favorites at least.
Clearly the best team in the conference. North Medford should take care of Thurston. Really the best game on that docket is Grants Pass at South Medford. That should really be a terrific game with 2 teams absolutely looking to prove something.
Yeah.
So that should be a really interesting one. All right. Well, that is our review of last week and look ahead to next week. We're going to go ahead and sign off real quick. That's the end of segment 1. When we come back, I'll let Lincoln get to his veritable tome of information in front of him here. And we're going to talk some soccer for the first time all year. So that should be fun. Thank you for joining us. Please go ahead and stick around and join us for the second segment as well. I'm Chris Phillips.
And Lincoln Andres-Beck.
And we are signing off for now. Thanks a lot.